Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on this week's Weekly Wrap. Got plenty to talk about this week. We've had Trials Day at Cheltenham and obviously Hurricane and probably the next whirlwind undersaw in the Irish Arkle. So without further ado, introduce tonight's guest. We've got Paul. Evening, Paul.
Evening, Dan.
James. Evening, James.
Evening, Dan.
And Dave, who's got here without Rory, which by the sound of it, after the conversation on air, off air rather, is probably a godsend actually. Evening, Dave.
Good evening, Dan.
We'll start with you, Dave, if you like. Trials Day. I don't think we've had one as strong as that in recent years. We've had a triumph, well, a very good triumph horse in Peace and Co. Many clouds at the Hennessy winner. And even the handicap chasers had a solid look to it. So, what would starting from the top? What did you think of Cheltenham's Trials Day?
It was one of those meetings we looked at Saturday morning. I was already down there. I stayed over with Mr. DeLonghi Friday night. We sort of looked at it Saturday morning, and I sort of looked at it at the time and thought, what are we going to see today? How many Cheltenham horses are we going to see here? And I thought to myself, if we see 2 or 3 would have done all right, and I think we've probably seen 4 or 5 that you can put towards the top of the list now for various Cheltenham races. For me, star of the show, well, it's got to be Many Clouds, I suppose, hasn't it? I think it was a good Argent. It's not called the Argento now, it's the Bet Bright, as they call it now. So give it its proper title, the Bet Bright. But it looked quite a strong lineup beforehand, and the way I thought Many Clouds has done nothing but enhance himself. I know if Mr. DeLonghi was here, it was one of his horses to follow at the beginning of the season, and quite rightly so too. I mean, he's done nothing here but just show that he is an out-and-out stayer, and the way that he was finishing his race off suggested that he's not going to have any problem whatsoever with the Gold Cup trip. I'm not sure about whether quicker ground might prove a little bit of an issue for him. I don't think so. I think he'll be okay on it. But what you can say, I think he's the one horse out of the race, with possibly the exception of the Giant Bolster, I think, that you would actually take forward from the Gold Cup. Smad Place had his chance at the weights. This was his Gold Cup, if you like. This was Smad Place's chance. He just couldn't, as hard as he tried, he just couldn't quite get to the winner. And as for Dynast, his class has got him where it is between 2. I thought he was cooked some way out, and credit to Dynast actually for battling up the hill the way that he did. His class has got him as far as it has done into the race, and to actually go down by sort of less than a length and a half in the end, he does look an absolute natural, you'd have to say, for the Rhino. The drop back to 2.5 will be right up his street. I wouldn't completely, still at a big price. We've seen the Giant Bolster now twice in the Gold Cup. I thought before the race, he's that sort of horse. This time last year, I remember actually, I looked back at my notes, and I thought he might need the run before. He looked like a horse that might need a run, and of course he didn't. This year, he looked like he definitely needed a run, and he's run like that as well. I thought he's blown up a bit and then stuck on a little bit in the closing stages. That sort of 150 yards, he's sticking on again. So I could see the Giant Bolster in another good race in the Gold Cup. Actually, perhaps not. He won't be winning it. Don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's in the prize money again.
James, do you see? Obviously, as Dave said there, Smad Place's Gold Cup was on Saturday. Alan King was pretty bullish, going in the back of a decent piece of work. Getting £8, he's going to find it difficult on the Friday in March to turn it around with Many Clouds. And is the Ryanair the right race for Dynast going forward as well?
I think Dynast is probably the right race. I think he's a bit stuck now because the Ryanair he won was, I think, a much weaker race than you're going to get this year. And his jumping was quite slow and sort of held him back a little bit on Saturday. And I think in the King George looked like he just stayed on, and I don't think he was done for stamina on Saturday either. But he's not good enough for the Gold Cup, and I just think he's had his Ryanair, and I think he's just caught in between a bit. The Ryanair is probably his best chance, but I don't particularly fancy him for that. I was really impressed with how Smad Place looked on Saturday because I'd seen him last season and he was okay, but I think he turned inside out this year. He looked fantastic, and receiving that weight, if he was going to be a Gold Cup player, you'd hope he could win, but he ran well enough. He made one quite significant mistake, but jump well otherwise, and I think he's basically all about stamina now. So if they go very hard in the Gold Cup, you never know, he could pick up the pieces. But Saturday was important, and he's probably just failed to come through. I mean, I thought when they came around the bend that both greys were going to come past Many Clouds, but he just stuck out and found more up the run and was really, really quite impressive as having sort of controlled the race. You couldn't hope for him to jump any better, and he's clearly been trained beautifully. The way he keeps just finding a bit more, keeps progressing. He's had that break after the hard race to Hennessy, and he's come back a better horse, a fresh horse, and he's a really serious player now for the Gold Cup, which I didn't actually see him being before Saturday.
Yeah, Paul, what James touched on there about the training performance, you got the impression in the aftermath of the Hennessy meeting that that was technically his Gold Cup that day. Whether they had anything left for the rest of the season, it wouldn't have really bothered Oliver Sherwood if they came back, called up Stubbs and brought him back for the 2016 Gold Cup. Did he impress you on Saturday with not only with the way that he went about his business, but constantly had to give away to a smart place, and to be fair, looked as though he had a little bit left in the tank as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was particularly impressed. Well, I think it's obvious to say, but his jumping won. I think his jumping won the day. It was the cleanest round of jumping I can remember seeing for a while. In a 3 mile one chase round Cheltenham, I thought he was pretty much foot perfect. Got in tight at a couple, but I think you're nitpicking if you say that. In terms of the Hennessy, I think that race for any of the major Lambourn trainers, I think is in its own right almost a Gold Cup. So I think he was rightly targeted at that race, and obviously knowing at the time he would have had a nice weight. I think at the start of the season when I visited the yard, there was talk of Bobsworth possibly running in the race, and Oliver was quite excited by the prospect that he might have got in with around 10 stone on his favourite soft ground. That wasn't to be, but obviously the weight didn't stop him. As James has said, the way he's been trained this year has been a testament to the trainer, to be honest. He stepped forward from Carlisle. I thought running at Carlisle at the time might have been a bit of a mistake, making his weight go up for Newbury, but again he proved that wrong, and he took another massive step forward on Saturday. Like both the lads have said, the others came there with chances. In terms of Dinas, I didn't think he jumped as slickly as he can, and I quite question whether he travelled just with the same fluency as he can. So I know he didn't thoroughly see out the race, but just question whether he was quite 100%. So it's been interesting to see if anything came out this week. But as James said, he's probably stuck caught between a rock and a hard place now, and the fact that he'll probably have to drop back in trip, but this year's Ryanair does look stronger than last year, and again I'm in the same camp there. I think he might struggle to follow up with the festival for the Gold Cup. I think on slightly better ground, I think Smart Place will, and over the longer trip will. He's got a chance of improving, but whether he's good enough to turn the form around on £8 worse terms again is debatable. That would be my only concern with Many Clouds. If it was genuinely decent ground or good to soft, I do think all of his best form has come with cutting the ground, but he certainly deserves his place in the lineup, and goes there with strong claims, especially if he puts in a round of jumping like he did on Saturday.
The other open grade 2 on the race was the Cleve Hurdle, which was won by Sapphire Duray. James, we'll come to you. You had this down as an RSA Hope. Hopefully you had a little bit of a nibble at World Hurdle as well, because I think Pricewise put it up this evening for the World Hurdle as an anti-poster piece. What did you make of his performance? And considering the way that the conditions probably favoured Rev de Savola, he's ground it out, but possibly had a little bit up his sleeve as well.
Yeah, I think it was an excellent performance. I don't think you'll see Rev de Savola run a lot better than that. He went hard from the front as he likes to do, and unlike Ascot, he made no mistakes. He pinged every hurdle, and you'd expect him to be pretty much impossible to pass in that sort of form. But Sapphire Duray came there and he did it well. And during the race he took a few hurdles to warm up to return to the smaller obstacles, but he got better through it, and it was a really smart performance. And it shows all his ability is still there. People were over hurdles. People were questioning his rating over hurdles, but I think it's pretty much accurate looking at how he ran. It's just a shame he's not going to be the RSA horse this season, because I think he'd be right there if he could just bring back that extra chase form. But that's by the by. But I think the most impressive part of that race was Sam Twiston-Davis' ride, to be honest, because I know you mentioned it after the race, but I thought it was, if you watch it again and imagine him thinking about the ride he gave Zarkandar to get beaten, You can see him just waiting before the last, just letting Reposolo go, and then he's easy on him after the last, and he tries to go as late as he possibly can just to make sure Reposolo has no opportunity to come back at him. And he throws everything at him from just before the half furlong pole, and he gets up, and it's just a really well thought out ride, and he's learned from that experience at Ascot, and I think it shows how Sam is coming along as a rider. But I think that's pretty good form. People will question Reposolo as horse that's not quite good enough for a world hurdle, but that's about as good as he is. And when he is at his peak, he is a top class horse. And Safedra has come out having had a stop-start season, and Paul Nicholls said he's going to find improvement hopefully from that, and he'll probably jump a bit slicker now. He's schooled over hurdles more, and I think he's a serious player. And he's not. I mean, now price-wise, it's put him up. He's probably going to be shorter than you'd hope, but until that, he's not a terrible price at the moment for the world hurdle.
Paul, what are your thoughts on the world hurdle and Sophia Duré's chances for that? And obviously the other novice hurdle on the card was all about value at risk for you going into the race. What did you make of his performance, and what do you make of Skelton's decision to only enter him in the Albert Bartlett in March?
Going back to the Cleve, I thought, again, as James said, I thought Twiston Davis, he's coming for some criticism this year, but I thought that was a fine ride. He was patient and quite cool on him after the last. And there was a couple of decent rides, I thought, at Cheltenham on Saturday. I thought Gavin Sheehan gave Anna Cottier particularly good strong ride, especially from the top of the hill. He seemed to let him get a breather and come down and let him roll. Back to the Cleve, did it well. To be honest, I was trying to look to take him on Saturday, but he got the job done. I thought Cole Harden was possibly the one I was looking forward to. Dave and I spoke beforehand, was expecting a bigger run from him. I spoke to Gavin Sheehan afterwards, and he said he was slightly disappointed the way the race evolved, and the fact that they ran down the centre of the track, which made his jump into the left, which he has done previously, extremely more exaggerated, and probably put pay to any chance he had. So I think if anyone like Cole Harden, I certainly wouldn't be tempted to completely write him off in a more strongly run race on better ground at the festival. But the world hurdle at the moment still completely revolves around what we're going to see from more of that, I think. And I think he's due to go to Haydock on 2 weeks on Saturday, is the 14th, and for the Rendlesham, I know that's been spoken of. So until then, it's probably a race I'll be waiting to see how he comes out. Because if he comes back to his best, I still think everything else will struggle to turn the form around with him. In terms of the novice hurdle, beforehand I've been banging the drum of value at risk for some time. And James and I spoke over the weekend. To be honest, I must have watched the race back about 6 or 7 times and still couldn't really work out whether they should have held on to him. He went hard early on when Stiletto went off like a scalded cat, and he probably chased down that pace too early. But watching the race and the way he finished strongly, I actually thought coming downhill he might have kicked for home sooner. But whichever way I think the race worked out, I think he'll still turn out. Well, I'm hoping he'll still turn out to be the best long-term prospect, and I think without doubt they're going for the right race now at Cheltenham in the Albert Bartlett. He definitely wants stepping up to 3 miles, but I think that was a strong enough race. I didn't actually, despite all my vocal support for him in the past couple of weeks, I didn't actually back him on Saturday because I thought he was plenty short enough, because I thought there was 4 or 5 in there with chances against him. So I didn't think he was a 6-4 shot in the morning, never mind 11-10 at post time. But the likes, I thought Robbins Firth travelled well again. He's probably another for next year over fences, and Vago Collins, certainly for the longest way he travelled, like the speediest horse, and I wouldn't mind seeing him go the other way, dropping back in trip, possibly into handicap company. I don't know what his mark went to yesterday, but a strongly run race over a slightly shorter with the hood on would probably suit Vago Collins. But I think it's a particularly strong race. Quite whether the best horse won on the day, time will tell.
Well, was that you advocating headgear there?
Go on. Go on. You heard it here first. The headgear snob says that the hood works on Vago Collins.
Dave, I think in relation to the novice hurdle there's a lot of horses going in there with a lot of potential. You had Sunbuckle, who finished a good second at Doncaster. You had Stiletto for the same owner, who looked could have been anything when he was winning on debut. It looked as though that race probably has numerous future winners in it going forward.
Yeah, you would hope so for a race of its quality. I know, with what Paul's saying there is, whether the winner's going to be the best horse, time will tell. I've always been quite a fan of Ordo Ab Chao. I really fancied him at Sandown last time, and whatever reason he didn't run his race. He looked particularly good. I know he'd not beaten a great deal at Huntingdon in 2 runs, but he wasn't out of third gear in either of those races. It was a shame he couldn't reproduce that form at Sandown, but he's reproduced it here and bettered it. I don't see any reason to doubt the form, is where I'm sort of saying here. The one that caught my eye actually in behind was Present View, who I thought ran a really nice race and came there with a chance off the turn before sort of weak, and clearly needed a bit of a run, I thought, and that would put him absolutely spot on for Cheltenham handicaps. Wouldn't be, he'd be going towards the top of something like the Burn Group. Stiletto was disappointing. I mean, they paid a lot of money for him at Brightwells, and he's pulled far too hard here, hasn't he? And yeah, Paul is, I'm afraid, might well need he might well need a hood next time or something. We can see what he can do properly then, but it was very disappointing for me.
And the World Hurdle picture is all about seeing what more of that can do if it returns at the Haydock.
Yep. In terms of what we saw on Saturday, we shouldn't forget that Rev de Silva's Cheltenham efforts are very much a curate's egg, aren't they? They're good in parts, and this was very, very good. He won this race 2 years ago, so he's got the class. And for all the will, when he looked like the winner, I thought up the straight. I thought he's just going to hold on here. He's going to keep battling as he does, and he's just going to hold off Safir de Reur. So it's to the credit of both horse and jockey that they were able to sort of break him down in that last half furlong. But in terms of what we saw there and what I think are going to win the World Hurdle, I still don't think that's quite going to be enough if we see a fully fit and back to form more than that. I still think he's the most likely winner of the World Hurdle at this stage.
James, the winner, Ordo Ab Chao, didn't do any harm to the Vito de Rock form at Sandown. Obviously, he probably detested the easy enough ground at the time, and I think Alan said today in his Weekender column that the Neptune's probably definitely his trip and the spring ground won't be a bother. But is Vito de Rock still on your shortlist come March? And obviously the same connections are a nice winner in the Juvenile Hurdle Triumph Trial at the Finesse.
Yeah, I think Vito de Rock is an interesting one for the Albert Bartlett. I think that's where he's going, and his form has worked out, and he ran an excellent race in the Challow and just beaten by a slightly speedier horse, and he keeps finding under pressure, which is always a bonus over the extra trip. But the Albert Bartlett is quite a competitive race now with so many interesting horses like Value at Risk going up in trip. So you could be justified backing any number of those in that race and have strong reasons for it. But yeah, his owner mate Peace and Co. I thought did extremely well. It seemed like maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it felt like a sort of concerted plan to try and get him beat by going very slow and seeing if he blew his head, because he would be keen. And Garrity did quite a reasonable job of settling him in behind after a bit. And but what I like about Peace and Co. is how he seems to jump, because even when he's taking a pull and his head's in the air, he still picks his legs up quickly and he knows where the hurdles are. And I think that accuracy is going to take him a long way. And the race got messy because they came around the bend and into the straight, and he got sort of squashed against the rail, but he just powered through that because he has so much sort of natural pace. And when he comes out in a race like the Triumph, where they go hard and he can get more cover in a bigger field, I think you'll just see a considerably better horse. And I think we have to wait and see what Bristol Demai does probably this weekend. But at the moment, I think in my opinion, he's the clear most likely winner of the Triumph after that performance. And it was pleasing to see Dave's favourite Karazak on a good race to give me some hope. So he's a sort of solid horse that's going to run well in the Triumph when it comes to test of stamina. So I think it's probably a good race and another smart performance from the winner.
Yeah, Dave, the Karazak fan club should be building back as the weeks count down to Cheltenham, shouldn't it?
Yeah, you would hope so. I would hope I'm not going to be the only member of it now. That'd be quite nice. But yeah, I mean, I'm on each way 33 and 25 after when he was going to second to Hargam and had a bit more again after he finished second to Bristol tonight. I mean, the word yardstick is one that's quite often maybe used in racing, but he is the yardstick, isn't he? He's come up against all three, what you would consider the main contenders possibly for the Triumph Hurdle, and has run well against all of them, as he did here. And he will absolutely love a scrap from Cheltenham, with the one actually, you know, of those that won't mind if it gets, you know, an end-to-end gallop and it turns into a real dogfight at the end. Karazak won't mind that at all. And I still maintain he'll be better on good ground and quicker ground. Much of his form in Ireland was on quicker ground, and I think I can see him certainly reversing the form with at least one of those that's beat him, maybe two, and possibly, you know, we hit the jackpot all three. But I was delighted with his run. I spoke with myself, and we spoke to Max O'Neill afterwards, and they were delighted too, absolutely delighted. He said he didn't think he was quite right when he got beat by Hargam. He wasn't quite right that day, which was quite interesting to hear. So if they didn't quite think he was quite right when he got beat by Hargam, then they obviously think that they can get closer to him again next time out. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with the run. Peace and Co. Yeah, I mean, Nicky Henderson afterwards was saying the thing that delighted him most, as James was pointing out, was that he's had a race there. You know, he's been made to actually do something rather than just sauntering clear. He's been made to go through a gap that possibly wasn't there and actually do a bit of work, which I think was the most pleasing thing for Nicky. But the two of them have come clear of the rest. My dirty each-way bet on Stormforce 10 without the favourite in the race, thought I was going to cop on that with about 100 yards, so I thought he was going to get up to third and get there and beat Zarib, who looked very small in the paddock. Zarib was very, very small. I thought Stormforce 10 is quite an interesting one, actually. There'll be handicaps to be won with him, definitely. But yeah, as far as the Karazak fan club goes, yep, all aboard. All aboard.
All aboard. Paul, when Peace and Co won at Doncaster, Rory said that when he was reviewing, because he's posted such a big figure, it was only natural that he's going to regress to a point on the ratings anyway, and he's done that. But I think he's by about £6 or £7. But the fact that he's been able to prove his ability around Cheltenham, that it probably negates that to a point. I think it was just a case of getting him to the race course, seeing if he can jump an undulating track and see, even if it is a bit of a dawdle, if he's matured mentally enough and there's a bit there at the end to come away from them on the day.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't quite the blistering performance that we seen at Doncaster, but given how slow they went, and he was pretty keen. I know Barry Garcia tried to play it down in his post-race comments on his after races blog. He was pulling for his head quite considerably early on, and the fact he was still able to arrive on the scene on the bridle, and then he knuckled down, which was nice to see. He'd done everything on the bridle at Doncaster, so it was pleasing to see him knuckle down, give weight to the fair yardstick, as Dave calls him. Because I think last time he was actually giving weight to Hargam, so I think Dave's has got a chance of reversing that form, and obviously we'll probably get to see Hargam at Musselburgh in action on Sunday. But yeah, Peace and Co. On course, I was actually a fraction underwhelmed with the performance, but when I got home and watched it a couple more times on Saturday night, it was a more impressive performance than I actually give it credit for at the time. And he certainly deserves his place at the head of the market at the moment. Again, like James has said, Bristol de May might well change that on Saturday. He's entered in the juvenile and the contenders hurdle, and then it's probably going to give the owners some headaches of where they're going to try and split them all up.
I'm sure they will. A nice position to be in, all the same. But elsewhere on the card was obviously the handicaps. Paul, I think it was at Kempton. You certainly blown the trumpet for Stellar Notion. What did you make of his performance on Saturday, and what did you think of? I know you've mentioned Anna Cotty and Gavin Sheehan's right, but was there anything in the novice handicap chase and also the I think it was a 2 mile which wrapped up the card? Anything for you in either of them races going forward?
Yeah, well, I thought Stellar Notion, thought he ran reasonably well enough again, I think. And there was a question mark about him on the undulating track beforehand, and certainly the stiffer test of stamina probably saw him out. I saw him in trouble on Saturday, and too he made a couple of fairly serious errors down the back straight. But prior to that, he jumped for fun. And a couple of people were asking me questions on Twitter whether I thought he was ridden too aggressively from the front, which I didn't particularly. I don't know if I haven't seen the time of the race. I don't know if the sectionals would say that was any different, but I just think that possibly returning to a flatter, sharper track will help him. Possibly maybe he's one for Aintree at the end of the season as opposed to going back to Cheltenham. In terms of the concluding handicap, Diamond King has also been a fan of since his bumper days, and I was looking forward to seeing his return. But he was quite buzzed up in the praise ring beforehand, and he was quite lit up during the race. So he come there travelling towards the foot of the hill before fading. I think he'd be one that should come on considerably for the run. And I've been waiting for him to go up to 2.5 miles, which we still haven't seen. So he could be of interest if he was to sneak into the Martin Pipe over 2.5, or again he could be possibly one that McCain says for Aintree, but certainly wouldn't be giving up on him just yet.
And James, anything in the handicaps for yourself? I think end of last week you talked about Diamond King returning in this race. Similar to Paul, was there enough in that performance to keep him on your shortlist going forward?
Yeah, there was, and he just needed the race, and he travelled quite strongly, as Paul said, to the bottom of the hill, and then he got squeezed for a bit of room and seemed to blow up, I think. I still can't write him off from becoming quite a decent horse, so definitely look forward to his next run. Another one I mentioned before was Moss Park, who I thought that Warwick looked like he definitely needed a proper stamina test. So they dropped him in trip at Cheltenham for some reason, but he just couldn't seem to go the pace at any point, but he ran perfectly well given that. He kept plugging on, he jumped fine, and I just think he needs to be looked out for when he finds a decent handicap over a trip probably longer than 3 miles. I do think he's got more ability than his mark suggests at that sort of trip, and I just think he's one you have to be looking out for. I'm convinced he's got a race like a sort of proper stamina test in him. Otherwise, I thought that Anacotta, it was a smart ride, but Big Fella Thanks often seems to finish weakly when he looks like he's going to win. So I don't know how strong it is overall, that particular race. Otherwise, Carol Sestre has been mentioned by a lot of people and suggesting he chased the pace probably a bit early and has got another race in him. So I guess I agree to some extent. He's probably another one to look out for.
And Dave, any of the handicaps took your eye, the performances? I think I'm certainly looking forward to Del Arca and probably the Coral Cup. He's only gone up £3, so I'll probably give him another chance in a race of that nature. But was there anything for you there on Saturday?
Yeah, we'll give Del Arca a quick mention. I thought they were trying to win that a bit cute, actually. He just seemed to be sort of nudging away at him and try and get him there without doing too much, and then his pocket picked a little bit on the running, I thought. So yeah, Del Arca definitely an interesting one. The Anacotti races I thought was quite a fascinating race. Anacotti himself, great to see him bounce back to form. That's his second good effort at Cheltenham now. Only gone up £5 for that win. That still leaves him on what looks like a feasible mark for the Cheltenham handicaps. Whether he'll stay for this or go up in the trip, I don't know. He gets further, but I personally think 2.5, a good run 2.5 is his trip. Tap Night, I was sort of half jokingly mentioned off air last week after he came off as one that might be quite interesting. Wasn't doing anything at all in the race. He's a hard ride. It's no coincidence that the last 2 wins for Tap Night, you've got to go back a couple of years, back a year and a bit more, but the last 2 wins are both from when Tony McCoy's ridden him, and he'll still be one that I want to keep on side. Little John, you've got to, again, we were sort of chatting with Roy about it, we both sort of agree that Aintree might be the best place for Little John. He'll enjoy having a crack at the Aintree fences somewhere down the line, the national fences where he can just sort of brush the top off them. He does tend to belt 1 or 2 in a race, and that's always going to hold him back. And I just want to echo what James said about Carol Sestre. I thought that was a really, really good one, actually. Considering where Stellar Notion has finished, He's finished well in front of Stellar Ocean, and he's given an awful lot of weight to the front two here. He's given a stone and a bit more to the winner, nearly well over a stone and a half to the second. I thought that was a very good run, and possibly, he got into 1 or 2 down the back as well. He was, I don't know whether he just couldn't quite see his fences because he had Stellar Ocean in front of him, and he just wasn't quite getting the side track or what. I don't know. Might have been better actually just going straight to the front alongside Stellar Ocean, and he might have jumped left down the back a bit better. But I thought that was a very, very encouraging run from Carlos D'Estrella. Clearly, the best thing to do with him is to get him up front. Didn't work at all last time. Sulked at Chepstow and didn't want to enable. Get Carlos D'Estrella up front looks a different horse.
Unfortunately, he's only been dropped a pound, so there's not the 140 handicap chase on. Not for the novices, probably. Well, it was definitely rules him out with that, but interesting to see if any of the front two go that way, if they're still waited to qualify for it. Dave, I'll actually stay with you for the Doncaster card. Obviously, connections of Easter Day. Looking forward to running in the Sky Bet chase until the night before, and then the owner fancied a day out at Cheltenham, so it left it with the favourite winning in If in Doubt, who I think won in the North earlier in the season at Catterick, but it looked as though if he can get his jumping together later in this season or possibly early next, that he could be a big player in the future.
Reminded me very much when I was watching the race. I thought I was watching Dursey Sound, who very sort of similar same colours, very similar sort of mould of horse. Just that there's an awful lot of raw talent there. If only they could get the jumping together. But he's just far too good for this lot. Even though he couldn't jump, his jumping was not good at the time. It's got to be said. What he has shown is plenty of heart here, plenty of stamina. There's so much more to come from him. How much has he got put up, Dan? Because I'm not seeing what did he get put up for this.
I'll have a look. 10?
I mean, in my head, I thought he'll go up 10 for it. How strong the form actually is open to some debate. There were some a bit further down that didn't run the races at all. Grandad's horse was very disappointing. I thought he was a much improved performer this season. Thought he'd go quite well here. The yardstick, I suppose, that you would use for the race, sorry to use the phrase, use that word again, would be Knight in Milan, who never seems to run a bad race around Doncaster. And him finishing third would be what you would sort of base the race around, I suppose. But what you make of If in Doubt, there's tons and tons more to come. But he's got to brush up his jumping.
And you're not far off, 10, spot on. Should be an handicap with Dave.
In my head, right after he'd won, I thought he'll go 10 for this. So there you go. Lucky guy.
James on the card was the Grade 2 River Don. Karachi Apache is probably sneaking under the radar of Nicky Henderson's novice hurdlers. The race might have fell into his lap to a point with the second and third going, possibly racing a bit too soon. But as I say, he's sneaking under the radar and he's improving with every run.
Yeah, and his form was actually very good. If you look back when he sort of burst on the scene at Sandown and he beat Clean Sheet, who was fully expected to win. Clean Sheet obviously came out and won at Newbury, and third was ASO, who's gone and won the Supreme Trial at Haydock, and that's worked out. And then he's gone and bolted up next time, and he's come to this race where he's taking on probably the sort of preeminent 3-mile novice hurdler in this country so far in Black Lion, and he's mugged him a little bit on the line, but Black Lion has shown consistent form all season, and to go and beat him is quite impressive, especially the way he hung left once it got serious, and he hung so far left he just went straight to the rail on the line as well, which was quite surprising. But it was probably quite a strong race, but it was interesting how Zero Shades of Grey sort of proved he does need that sort of trip. But the way he battled with Black Lion for almost the whole straight probably proved costly. And you can imagine if they ran the race again, you could see Black Lion being held on to perhaps a bit longer and not being so aggressive, and they might be able to reverse that form. But yeah, Karachi Apache keeps improving, and he looks quite a solid proposition as well now, having beaten those and his earlier season form working out well. It's funny, they say he works appallingly badly at home as one of the slowest they've got, but when it comes to the racetrack, he's doing all the right things.
The market of both Karachi Apache and Vito De Rock at 16-1, so it might be a case of Barry Geraghty having an interesting decision to make. Paul, we'll come to you and we'll talk the machine on Sunday and Undersaw and winning the Irish Arkle. You mentioned off air, every time you watch it, it just keeps on getting better and better.
Yeah,
that's certainly the case, isn't
it? It's just a bloodlust display. I've just watched it again before we came on air, and the way he's put they're no mugs, them two horses. They're up there with just about the best novices in Ireland, to be honest. Prior to Sunday, he put them to the sword early on, and if you watch it again, it's turning. He's not just keeping up the gallop; he quickens again, and to be able to go that pace and jump the way he did, and then quicken again, there's not that many horses can do it. I've seen people saying he'll be an exhilarating ride, an exhilarating watch, and a nerve-wracking watch, this, that, and the other because of his low fencing. But if you're going to be a top 2 mile chaser, that's the way you've got to jump. The likes of Moscow Flyer, he got caught out now and again and he hit the deck. Azerty was low and fast. You've got to get from A to B as quick as possible to be a true champion chaser. I think probably the only champion in recent times that hasn't looked like coming down is Sprinter Sacre, and he's a bit of a complete one-off. I think it's a case now at Cheltenham. I think it'll be a case of, I think the ground was probably as quick as he'd raced on Sunday. I don't think the ground will be an issue because it'll be good to soft. The undulating track possibly, but I had an interview with Ruby Walsh yesterday, and he said he didn't seem to see it as an issue from where he's been around in Ireland. And I think it's a case of I know in the past they've worried about him boiling over, but he's travelled to France before without an issue, and if they can keep a lid on him, I think it will be a case of whether he can jump around, and by Alpha Harry will win already in the Arkle, to be honest. It'd be a bit of an unoriginal selection going near us at the time, but I think he was the quickest horse of all of these over hurdles. I think he would have gone close if he'd have took his chance in the champion, and he's proved he can jump now, so you're probably basically backing him to jump around if you're backing him now for Cheltenham.
James, what Paul mentioned there about jumping technique, the way that Joss's Hill, who's I think he's second favourite at the moment, went round Doncaster for the first 3 quarters of the race and undersaw in the Irish Arkle, chalk and cheese in relation to the technique.
Yeah, if you're looking for a horse to propose undersaw and you're stuck with Joss's Hill, who's been sort of ponderous and careful, I mean that's the last thing you need, isn't it? Unless he comes out whenever he runs next, probably should be soon, and jumps that Sprinter Sacre and belts up. It's hard to imagine him not being in trouble quite a long way out in the Arkle. And I just thought it was absolutely amazing performance from Undersaw at the weekend. You could imagine him beating them well, but that was just sort of shaking your head how amazing it was. It's like almost like sort of you think Messi when he picks up and he beats 6 players and chips the goalie, you just think that's ridiculous. And he's you watch Undersaw, and I was sort of laughing almost as he crossed the line. I think it's just ridiculous how good that was, and it's almost unfair that he's taking on other horses who, just and never going to be able to do something like that. And he's so exciting. I think Paul's bang on. You're backing him to get around. I think there's nothing within in the same parish going towards the Arkle at this stage.
And Dave, James mentioned the same parish there. I think at the moment, obviously Sprinter Sacre had his big performance in the Arkle. I think Timeform have got him rated about a stone ahead of anything which Sprinter Sacre did in his novice campaign before going into the Arkle. He's could be a phenomenon.
He probably already is. In truth, he probably already is a phenomenon, isn't he? I think it tells you all you need to know when a jockey like Brian Cooper comes out after the race and just sort of says, "Where did he go?" He was closing in on him 2 out, and and then he just went away again. Thought he had half a chance of getting to him. It's just I've just not seen a horse go away like that. That tells you all you need to know about him. So I mean, there is talk of him. He's been not very tall, but he's been put in, hasn't he, by a couple of firms with a run for the champion chase and around about sort of 7-2, 3-1, I think. I wouldn't like to see him in a champion chase this year. I know it's weak, but I'm a great believer in you go through your novices, you win your novices, then you step up. The Arkle's there for the taking as well for him. As we say, we haven't seen anything of his calibre this year. I probably won't for a year or two, to be quite honest. He is a frightening horse, and it is the more you watch. As Paul says, if you're going to be a champion, generally you've got to be quick over your fences. And yes, all right, there's always going to be that worry at the back of your mind that he'll just one day clip one and whatever. But you don't even think about those things, to be honest, when he's going to be lining up on the day. If he lines up in the Arkle, it will be a case of what comes second to him.
And from the Phenomenon to the Hurricane, Dave, there's not really much which can be said about Hurricane Fly now. Is it 22, 23 Grade 1s? 10 from 10, I think, from Leopardstown now. 5 times winner of the Irish Champion Hurdle. I know people will be crabbing his Cheltenham form or try to crab it, but he's a dual champion hurdler, and he's the only one in about 40 years to regain his crown.
Yeah, he is. He is the only one. Yeah, I mean, that was the point we made at the time, I think, was that it's very, very difficult to regain a crown once you've lost it. I think you've got to go back to the 1950s, haven't you? I think, to find the last time that it was done. Again, you just run superlatives for the horse, don't you? He's all heart. He was, halfway down the back, you were all for retiring him, weren't you? You're thinking, this is it, bless him. And look at when Ruby's just asked him to pick up again. Once he's got alongside Jetski, Tony McCoy said in an interview on Monday, once he's come alongside, you just know, he says, there's no way. As soon as he eyeballs something, he's not going to, at Leopardstown anyway, he's not going to be defeated. So, you just run out of superlatives for the horse. Can he win another champion hurdle? Oh, I don't know. Look, I wouldn't be back. If I'm honest, I've got, and you have to be honest on these things. I wouldn't be backing him for a champion hurdle now. I think he's underpriced, actually. I'd want a little bit bigger for him. It is the one place, again, going back to what Tony was saying, Tony McCoy saying on his interview on Monday, it's possibly, as you say, Danny, he has won 2 there, but it is possibly the one place where he is susceptible, and he is coming under pressure that little bit sooner in his races. He does hit that flat spot. We've seen it at Cheltenham, he's hit that flat spot a couple of times there before he picks up again. But on quicker ground, he might just find him again, just going away from him. But look, let's not detract from what the horse has done. He's an absolutely wonderful horse, and this may be the last season we see of him. Who knows? But let's just enjoy him for what he is.
Agree with that, James. And what did you make of Jetski? I know, as Dave said there's a lot of superlatives about Hurricane Fly, and rightly he's deemed the greatest. I think Kevin Blake's written a great column this week about his performances, comparing him to Muhammad Ali. And but what about the horse in behind, and Jetski, who probably beat when he made a mistake at the last and ended up finishing in 3rd. Would you give him a chance in the not just reversing the form, but winning the big one in March?
He's been put up by a lot of people sort of as an each way bet something, hasn't he, for the race in March? But when I look back at last year's champion hurdle again recently, I sort of remembered it that Hurricane Fly was a long way behind the front pair, but he actually wasn't. And I think that race last year, everything went spot on for Jetski, and Arcona had a sad demise, and in the process took out the new one essentially, and My Tent or Yours basically took himself out through pulling too hard and didn't jump particularly well. And I think I'd be quite keen to be against Jetski in this year's champion hurdle when you look at how good Faheen is, and I think the new one with a clear round, and I think Hurricane Fly has come right back to form after that sort of underwhelming finish last season, and I think I'd probably fancy him to maintain that form. I mean, even though he seems to be Leopardstown specialist, I just think Jetski is unlikely to get a race fall for him so perfectly again as it did in last season's champion hurdle. If he hadn't made that mistake at the weekend, he probably would have been narrow second again. And I do think it's unfair for people to keep saying Geraghty needs to get back on him and McCoy is the issue, because Hurricane Fly is just pretty much impossible to beat in those conditions. And I'm not sure what else he could have done. Yeah, he gave him a good ride in the champion hurdle, but McCoy's given him good rides before, and he beat Hurricane Fly at Punchestown. don't see the argument being valid, to be honest.
And Paul, your thoughts on Hurricane Fly and jet ski's chances, and well, obviously thoughts on the race and the chances in match?
Yeah, it's just brilliant to watch again, wasn't it? As Dave said, there's not really much more you can say about it now. 22 Grade 1s, 10 from 10. Leopardstown, well, he is unbeatable at Leopardstown, he's proven that now. Touching on his Cheltenham form, I've been probably bar Catherine Fry. I've probably been his biggest fan since his novice hurdle days, and I do believe that his form at Cheltenham, despite winning 2 champion hurdles, isn't as strong as it is in Ireland. He would have beat Pedlar's Cross at his peak. I think he would have beaten 10 lengths further on the bridle around Leopardstown. So I can see the way people say that his form isn't as strong. He might have won the race, but yeah, he'd have won the race more convincingly if he'd have run the champion hurdle at Leopardstown on slightly easier ground. I think he'd have beaten the horses he beat at Cheltenham hollow, to be honest. So yeah, I don't even think it's a given he'll actually go there myself, to be honest. I think he was trained. I think Sunday might well have been his champion hurdle in terms of Willie's mind, that he would have, that was the one he wanted to win more than anything. Well, probably the owner will probably want to have another crack at it, and he deserves to take his chance, obviously. But like Dave said, he'd just be slightly concerned if the ground was decent, because he was in trouble somewhere else on Sunday, and that's not like him. But the one thing we've seen from this year, and arguably at times last year, in terms of earlier in his career, he was doing everything on the bridle and beating everything like that. Even now, you've seen he's got a different side to his game now. Hurricane Fly, that he knuckles down and he battles, and he has got everything, and he probably is just about the best of us I've seen, I'd say. In terms of going forward with jet ski, I think he was beaten when he made the mistake at the last. I don't think he would have got back up to beat Hurricane Fly. Yeah, he'll go there with sound chances, but I think he's probably priced up about right in the champion hurdle. Yeah, everyone says Forheen's got to go and do it, and I wouldn't back him myself at even money now to go on if you're not already on to go and win the champion hurdle. But if you put a gun to me, I'd go with Forheen all day long to beat jet ski, to be honest, just on his pure potential if you're taking the prices out of it. And again, like James said, if the new one gets a clear round, then I think he's sure to go close, and I think jet ski will struggle to finish in front of them too.
The coming weekend, what we've got is the Scilly Isles Chase card at Sandown, and a decent card at Fosslas, which holds the Welsh champion hurdle. I think it's a West Welsh national, and they have to have a national of some sort at every other course of the country, so why not a Fosslas? Dave, any sort of early thoughts about the weekend card, or is there any horses which have performed last week which you think we should have on our shortlist going forward?
Well, I should be at Wetherby on Saturday. I should be with Mr. Weller as One Track Mind continues his education in a 2 mile 6 novice hurdle there, and hopefully he can run a little bit better than a few of Warren's have done recently. As far as the Scilly Isles goes, it's going to be all eyes, I think, really on Justice Hill to a point, isn't it? Let's see if if he's learned to jump a bit better this time. Sandown's a hell of a place to find out, because if you're going to find out if a horse can jump or not, you take it to Sandown. I've always thought that it's a proper jumping test down the back. And Champagne West as well. I hope Champagne West is up for the race. I think they'll be the two that give us the biggest pointers towards Cheltenham out of the race. I've not really looked at the Fosslas card. I had a brief look at it last night. I know Silsoul's in there, and that's the one that Paul Nicholls has nominated as his one. Presumably Guy Walters will have a run in the race, he normally does. I'll just quickly get it up there in 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Livius was one that went in the Naval last time as well. Livius has been in the Naval for about 12 months now, actually, since he finished second to the Sky Farmer at Cheltenham. Came out next time and beat Deep Trouble, and he's been a horse that's been rather in my notebook since then. So he'll be one I'm looking at, and probably further down the handicap, Hands Up for Detroit, who really ought to have won he's off 10 stone 2, and it's going to be up. And if he's 10 stone 2 and he's up to the neck in it again, which it will be, he might not have the class, but I tell you what, he could win a race at a big fight as well. Maybe might too at the first time.
James, any early thoughts on the card? Talking of whether we're there, we might even see King's Palace in the Towton Novices.
Yeah, it's the novice chase is a good race, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to see King's Palace again. I'm not sure if he's going to go there or wait for the Reynoldstown. At Sandown, obviously, the Contenders Hurdle looks interesting with Jolly Allen, potential supreme contender, and Bouveroy, also a horse I mentioned before. I have him down as a Fred Winter horse at the moment, but he could sort of take himself out of the reckoning for that if he runs a good race in that. And it'd be obviously interesting to see which way Bristol De Mai goes, whether he goes for the juvenile race or that tougher Contenders Hurdle. And also Foss Lass in the bumper. It's interesting. Stonegate's entered. Megastar's full weather for the Moore family, and he ran on that really hot race at Ascot that I was very keen on, where Super Sunday beat Yanworth. He boiled over beforehand, but he's a very good-looking horse. And I thought he stood out that day until he sort of seemed to get sweaty and lost the plot a bit. And if he can settle down, I think he handled terrible ground at Sandown before, and if it's like that again this weekend, I think he'll certainly be worth looking out for potentially against Henderson's 007 or 007. Last week, I thought it's worth going back to the Gowran card, and Jacadam was very impressive, and it'd be very interesting to see whether Ruby ends up on him in the Gold Cup, or if Boston Bob can do something on Alexis and take him, because I think that's a quite difficult decision for him to make. But if he ends up on Jacadam, I think it's quite a big call, and I do think he's got a good shot in the Gold Cup. And also the bumper I'd mentioned last week, Balco de Flo could be Gigginstown's runner in the Champion Bumper now. They've changed their sort of policy a bit, but apparently he's going to go to they've changed their mind, and he's going to go to 4-year-old bumper at Limerick. And the winner on Thursday at Gowran in the bumper there was Stonehard, and he was really impressive for the same connections, and it sounds like he's going to be their contender. I think he's probably the most impressive I've seen from Mullins' camp so far. I think he's got a huge future, including at Cheltenham this year.
Paul, you'll probably be banging the same drum about Stonehard, won't you?
Yeah, he was going to be my horse to take from last week. As I say, I mentioned him after his debut success. I was really impressed from what you could see in the fog on Thursday at Gowran. He came out of the mist and blew away his rivals. But the third horse, the Mera Mullins, who's quite good. So I think the form's pretty strong as well, and he's come on since his debut. And certainly a name to remember. As James has alluded to, they've said today that they might well let him take his chance in the Champion Bumper, which is rare for Gigginstown. So hopefully he'll line up. But whatever he does now, he's got a big future. And there was a decent bumper winner today at Newcastle, actually. Captain Chaos and Andrew Tinkler went up to ride just the one horse for Tim Fitzgerald, and he won the bumper by 17 lengths. So I expect he'll probably end up going to the sales and be with a bigger owner before too long. In terms of this weekend, the Scilly Isles, hopefully Champagne West and Jossasil both line up, and Willie Mullins has got 3 entered as well. Out of that trio, I wouldn't mind seeing the mare Gatain de Burley come over. She'll set on a right gallop, but that'll make it a proper test. And another one that caught my eye, just going through the entries over the weekend, over in Ireland, and they looked at potentially strong mares, Novice Hurdle. Carav Morning Rock, who's improving all the time, but the main one being Morning Run, another Willie Mullins horse who's unbeaten at the moment, and we haven't seen her since October time, I don't think. She had a bit of a break, but I suspect this will be teeing her up for wherever she goes for the spring festivals, and she looked pretty high class.
Well, it sounds like we'll have plenty to talk about next week when we reconvene. Dave, James and Paul, thanks a lot for your time out this evening, and thanks for viewers, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, gents.